Well, thank you very much for your testimony. We will now move on to question and answers from the panel, and we'll start with questions from myself. So I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. Director Kratsios, I want to start with the points that Ranking Member Lofgren raised, which I thought were excellent and really pertinent as usual. And in particular, the point about preemption. To be clear, I don't think anyone believes that the states shouldn't have a lane in regulating AI. But I think what everyone believes is that there should be a federal lane and that there should be a state lane, and that the federal government needs to go first in defining what is, under Article 1 of the Constitution, interstate commerce, and where those preemptive guardrails are, where regulation is reserved only for regulation at the federal level, and then outside those guardrails where the states are free to go be the laboratories of democracy that they are. So the President recognized this in his executive order last month. He's calling for Congress to work with the executive branch in defining what those guardrails are. I think there was an explicit acknowledgement in that executive order that congressional action is needed. It's not something that can be done unilaterally. So can you talk a little bit about what the administration's vision for that is and where you think those guardrails ought to be?
Absolutely. The president first spoke about the need for a sensible national policy framework actually in July when we released the AI Action Plan. And in that speech here in Washington, he made it clear that having a set of 50 different laws all across the country is actually not the best thing for American innovation. And as someone who's worked in Silicon Valley and worked with lots of startups and been at startups, I understand the challenge. And I think what is sometimes missed in this conversation is if you have this tremendous patchwork of laws all across the country, the folks who actually are able to work within that system most successfully are the deep-pocketed large big tech companies, the small innovators, the entrepreneurs, the people who want to start new businesses. Forcing them to try to find a way to comply with 50 different sets of AI rules is actually anti-innovation, and it's something that I don't think anyone on this committee actually supports. The president then took another step forward in December of last year where we laid out an executive order charging me and David Sachs to work to create legislation to help find a path forward for a sensible national policy framework. And that's something that I very much look forward to working with everyone on this committee for. I think what was clear in the executive order specifically was that any proposed legislation should not preempt otherwise lawful state actions relating to child safety protections, AI compute and data infrastructure, and also state government procurement and use of AI. Those are ones that were called out in the executive order, but we look forward over the next weeks and months to be working with Congress on a viable solution.
Well, thank you very much. And this is something that we have been grappling with now for several years. We had a whole chapter on preemption in the AI task force report. I think it was very helpful that the administration is also thinking about this issue and thinking about where those state lanes should be and how they intersect with the federal lanes. So let's keep working on that. I also wanted to, in addition to commending you for the good work of Casey, talk about the need for us in Congress to formally codify it. And the work it does in doing AI model evaluation is essential in creating what's a toolbox, a regulatory toolbox for our sectoral regulators, so everyone doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. But we've had this in successive administrations now. Under the Biden administration, we had the AI Safety Institute. The Trump administration, we have Casey. There are many of the same functions that are performed by those organizations, but I think everyone would agree it's unhealthy for us to have every successive administration spin up a brand new agency that essentially is doing something with a long-term mission that needs continuity. So can you talk about whether or not you think we in Congress need to go ahead and codify this as part of implementing our national strategy on AI?
I think Casey, as was kind of discussed previously, I think is a very important part of the larger AI agenda. I think one of the important and big steps that the administration took at the beginning of middle of last year was to reframe what was previously a safety institute into one that is focused on standards and innovation. And I think from my perspective, the most important thing that can be done around Casey at NIST is to focus on what NIST is really good at. and what Mrs. Stevens was talking about. It's absolutely important that the legacy work around standards relating to AI are undertaken by CASE, and that's what they're challenged to do. And that's the focus that they should have, because the great standards that are put out by CASE and by NIST are the ones that ultimately will empower the proliferation of this technology across many industries.
Well, thank you very much for your testimony. I'm looking forward to hearing the questions from our other subcommittee members. I now recognize